Welcome back, students who are taking financial accounting, and in this series of videos we are working on the assigned homework problems from the digital study guide for chapter 11, and these will be the group B problems from the exercises. So note, accounting is about understanding the concepts and then applying that understanding to the situation at hand. If you get the application aspect wrong, that is one thing and is easily remedied by watching someone else work the problem. However, if you don't understand the concepts, that is a whole other thing. Watching a problem worked out will not help if you don't understand the underlying concepts. Go back and study the text material again and watch the theory videos. If you still don't understand the concepts, then either email or telephone an instructor to get help with that understanding. And as a quick aside, just before we move forward, in doing the short exercises for this chapter, it laid the foundation for you to be able to do any of these exercises or the problems going forward. So I'm not going, if you've watched those videos, you've seen my thought process and my spiels about how to go about things. I highly recommend that you go back and watch those if you didn't, and you're struggling with something, because as we go forward, I'm not going to do a lot of the repeating of what I had said in those particular exercises. They were kind of like one exercise upon the other built your skill set in order to be able to look at the totality of a situation. So in other words, you're given a problem, you should be able to figure it out. In doing these exercises and problems, I'm not going to be spending the time explaining the different, the thinking process of going through. For example, here. Here for 1-23B, it says operating activities indirect method. Right. Well, in the indirect method, you should already know, and this is operating activities. So for the indirect method, in the operating activities section, you should have some idea what activities are involved in that section, and you are going to have to be able to calculate those particular figures. Okay. Well, all of this was covered in all of those short exercises, so I'm not going to be so concerned with how to format sections and this and that. What I'm going to be more interested in doing is making sure that I'm hitting the right activities and I'm calculating the right amounts. Okay, so with that said, it says here, compute the net cash provided by operating activities during March using the indirect method. All right, so we start out with net income using the indirect method. So what is our net income? Well, our net income okay, I had to pause the video here. So I had said our net income, and I'm looking at it here in the retained earnings, and my net income is $73,000. Okay. However, if you look at the solution says our net income is $132,000, which is this figure. No, that's the amount in our ending balance of our retained earnings. That is not our net income for the accounting period. Right, so that solution being $132,000 is incorrect. All right. So you're going to look at, follow along with the numbers I'm using here, because obviously we're going to end up with a different net cash provided, because that solution is incorrect. All right, so we start out with our net income, and then we have to look at our operating activities. Well, what are our operating activities that we have to take into consideration? The first one would be depreciation. Right, and so that's $9,000 right here. Then we have our inventory. Okay, and our inventory increases. Right, so we have an inventory, and our inventory is going to increase. Right, and that increase is the difference between the $33,000 here and the $19,000, right, which is $14,000. Right. Now, because it's an increase, we're going to subtract out the 14,000. Again, if you look at the template, remember the way the template or that exhibit, it shows a plus or a minus, telling you whether you should increase or decrease, and then it tells you what the activity is. Look at the activity, like in this case here, we're looking at the activity being our inventory, okay, and we have to make the calculation for that change, and depending upon what that change is, we either add it or subtract it. So in this case here, our inventory went up by 14,000, okay? It increased by 14,000, all right? But the increase in the inventory, I should have made that a minus sign right there. The increase in the inventory, we actually have to subtract that out. So that's why it's 14,000. And think about the underlying concept is, what is the net effect on cash? Well, if our inventory increased, right, that means we paid for it in cash, so our cash decreased. That's why it's a negative $14,000. Okay, you have to always keep in the back of your mind, what is the effect on the cash? Right, so then the last thing is our accounts payable. So I have 18,000 for our accounts payable, and I have 7,000 for the beginning, all right? And the difference between that is $11,000, okay? So our accounts payable increased, and so that's going to be an additional $11,000. Why? Right? Because we didn't pay out the cash just yet, okay? So that's 11,000. And oh, I forgot, accounts receivable. So our accounts receivable, again, you know, I have 12,000, and I started out with 18, so the difference is 6, right? So that's going to be $6,000 because our accounts receivable decreased by $6,000, right? So when we add up all of those figures, we end up with $12,000, and then the difference between the 73,000 and the 12,000 is 61,000. Okay, and that would be the net cash provided by the operating activities. And so again, the beginning figure here of 73,000 is, I feel, is incorrect because we're not talking about the beginning. We're talking about net income. We're not talking about retained earnings. And so keep that as a mental adjustment as you look at the solution to the homework problem. Right. So with that, I keep on saying all right. With that, I'm finished, and I will see you in the next problem, the next exercise in the next video.